Hello, everybody, and welcome to another Simon on the sofa. Yay! Are you as happy as I am to be sitting on the sofa and having another conversation? I hope you are as happy to listen to me talk with this beautiful man today as I am in looking forward to have this conversation with him. If you notice, the little overlay that I just showed up is a little mention about Patreon page that I've now put together. That means that you can support these videos if you want to see more of them, hear more of them, continue the journey of Simon on the sofa with me. Then you can also maybe choose to become a patron of the sofa. That means that you can contribute small amounts of money from $1, $2, $3, $5, $10, whatever you feel, every time I create a video, and that supports me to continue creating them. Get some new equipment, and also do the work needed to bring beautiful conversations to the world, to support, educate, and inspire us as we all collectively evolve together. So today I'm with a wonderful man, a very spontaneous meeting with this wonderful guy called Levi. Hey, Levi.
Hey, Simon. Thank you for...
Great to have you here. So Levi's outside a little bit. So if the line goes funny or anything, let us, we'll check in with that. But Levi's in a beautiful outside and I'm inside, as you can see. It's dark outside where I am and light where Levi is. I just love that, you know. I just love that we can connect now all around the world, wherever we are, different time zones. It's almost like nothing's linear anymore, you know. It's just like blown out the world.
Doesn't it illuminate the illusion of light and dark? I mean,
Right.
It totally blows that away. It's light over here, it's dark over there. Like, what is really going on, you know?
Yeah. It's, you know, it's a whole, the way that we interact with life now and engage is of a whole nother level. So I think what I feel like doing, Levi, is I'm going to just read the beautiful piece that you wrote that really drew me towards you and has now created this conversation. If you're happy with that, I'm going to read it to you. Is that okay?
Yes, please. Thank you.
So it goes like this: what I really want to say. And then Levi put a quote by a beautiful man who inspired much of my own journey, Krishnamurti. And it says, "It is no measure of health to be well adjusted to a profoundly sick society." Lately, I've had a difficult time getting out there and sharing my message with gusto and conviction. I finally realized it was because it wasn't actually my full message. I wasn't being fully in integrity to who I am and what I really want. So I get to restore integrity now. I don't want to coach and help people get ahead and be happy inside of a completely dysfunctional system. I want to help people walk away from it and empower them to stand up and create something better. I don't want to help people achieve financial wealth and independence. I want people to join me in rediscovering the true wealth and interdependence that comes with it. What I think we all really want, question mark. What I know I really, really want. My indigenous soul back, my tribe, my community, my roots in the earth, the voices of the ancestors in my heart. My home as a gathering place for people to come to recover their indigenous self. My community's garden as the primary source of my food. Waterways that I'm not afraid to drink out of. A face-to-face relationship with people who made my clothing, my meals, my furniture. Villages where I'm not afraid to let my children play for hours without my watchful eye. A tribal, indigenous renaissance. A new definition of wealth. A new story of civilization. A future for my great-great-grandchildren. That's what I want. I can't, in good conscience, settle for anything less. What do you want?
Well, thank you for reading that. I mean, you instilled so much passion into that. You gave me chills. Reading my own words back to me. That was beautiful. Thank you.
So, you know, so for me, you know, you gave me chills. Like I woke up one morning, whatever. 1 minute, darling, could you just ask, because it's right by the window, I think I can really hear the background. So basically when I read that, I woke up in the morning, Levi, and I was just, I was in the same, in the same journey, wake up, what's happening in the world, the more beautiful world our hearts know is possible, what's happening today, what am I doing, what projects am I working on today, where best can I create and make a difference in the world. And a number of things led, and this is why I wrote the post, and that was the first thing I saw, pretty much. It went boom to you, and I read that and I was like, yes, it sung to me. And what sung to me really was the line, that clarity around saying, you don't want to it's not just about coaching people get ahead and be happy inside a completely dysfunctional system. That has been a dance that I've been on myself, and obviously working and coaching and supporting people and creating events and workshops and so on for the last several years. That's also been a question I'm constantly asking. What's the next step or the next conversation to say, hey, how do we co-create this more beautiful world? And what really needs to take place is that we have to, create new systems, et cetera, et cetera. So anyway, please feel free to flow from whatever's arising, what come up from you, hearing it back, where you are now since a couple of weeks back when you wrote that. And let's continue the dialogue.
Yeah, absolutely. So those words ring true for me just every single day. Like, I really have been on an incredible journey myself the last 3 years, right? I went from just being absolutely asleep, absolutely just completely unhappy and miserable, and working as a carpenter, just my marriage was dysfunctional. I couldn't connect with my kids. I was detached and completely separated from my family. There was just so many things that were just tearing me up inside. But I think the journey really started for me even before that, because what led me to that point was I had initially tried to make this journey about 8 years ago, right? Because at the time, I had everything. I had everything that society tells you you're supposed to have. So I had a beautiful house, white picket fence, and nice expensive cars, and the big screen TV, and I had a lot of friends that came to all my barbecues, and a beautiful wife, and and I just felt this emptiness. It was just this emptiness, and there's this question inside of, is this it? Right? Like, I've done everything that I'm supposed to do. I had a lot of money, but everything and everybody around you is saying, yeah, this is it, right? This is how it works. And so you just kind of squash that voice. And I did a lot of, I had affairs. I smoked cigarettes for years. There's a lot of things that I did to really sort of suppress that. And so if you have the right kinds of things, you can create coping mechanisms, right? Like a Harley Davidson is really, really good for that. You got a Harley Davidson, you can really squash that stuff down for a few years, Netflix, I mean, all that shit, right? But then something happens, and I think this happens for everybody. Something happens, comes along, and you can't ignore it anymore. And for me, that moment was the birth of my son. My son come into the world, 2008, and I'm looking at him, and I'm looking at this empire that I've been working so hard to create, and I'm asking myself, is this what I want to give him? And it was really clear for me, no, absolutely not. And it was like almost at the same time, it was like this simultaneous thing. Like, as soon as that clarity came for me, everything collapsed. Like, my business went bankrupt. I, lost the house, lost everything. And you would think, like, normally you think that when you go through a crisis like that, like, that's the thing that we're so terrified of happening. Everybody's so afraid of losing everything. And I remember when that bankruptcy paperwork went through, and I walked out of there, and I just remember feeling this lightness. It was like, oh my God, here I am in this space of nothing. I could do anything, you know? And so I chose at that point I decided, you know, I'm looking around at this society and this civilization, and at the time I had a lot of judgments on it. You know, this is so fucked up what we're doing. This is so fucking wrong, you know? Is this a family show, by the way? Okay, occasionally I get colorful, so
No, it's okay.
let me
Please.
know.
No, feel free to be, feel free to express yourself in whatever flows. I'm sensing that even if it gets a bit colorful, it's not going to be too derogatory.
Beautiful. So I ended up deciding I was going to drop off the grid, right? And I took my family, moved down to Costa Rica, and the problem with that approach is, in retrospect, it seems obvious, right? But we don't really think about this, because the problem with it was what I was trying to do was change my outer circumstances, and I didn't realize at that time that that everything that I was experiencing in my life was my creation, you know. And so I just went down to Costa Rica and recreated everything down there that I had up here, and it was just a bunch of shit. And my wife and I ended up separating, and she took my son and moved back to Germany, where she was from, and I went through this incredible turmoil. I just kind of hit rock bottom. I was drinking all the time, and just, you know, just hooking up with women, and just trying to numb the pain, because it was still there.
Right.
And one day I'm on the phone with my mother, and she tells me about this Vipassana thing, and something just, I had no idea what Vipassana was. She said the word Vipassana, and the phone got disconnected, and that was it. And like, I didn't even know what Vipassana was, but I knew it spoke to me with all my being. It was like, that's important.
Yeah.
And within 5 minutes, I had registered for the next Vipassana retreat in Costa Rica, and that was the beginning of this little shift that started to happen. And one thing led to another, and I ended up back in Germany. And the problem that I ran into then was that I ended up going back to reconcile with my wife, and so that I could be around my son. And I had gone through this process of trying to fit myself back into the box. Right? This is what I was doing. It was like, okay, my attempt to leave society failed, and now I'm going back into it because that's the right thing to do, you know. And so I went back to Germany, and I literally recreated my father, who had been dead 20 years, but I literally recreated him. I went to work doing the same shit that he used to do, and I recreated the same dysfunctional relationship with my son, no matter how hard I tried not to. You know, my marriage was being held together out of you know, resentment and obligation, and you know,
Yeah.
and my greatest joy in life was just coffee and cigarettes. It was it, you know. And at the Vipassana experience, I had run into a guy who told me about ayahuasca, and I knew the moment that he said it, I knew I was going to do it, you know. But it took me about 4 years to finally get down there and have that experience. It was calling to me and calling to me and calling to me, and I finally just took action, right? Because it's like, yeah, there's a huge difference between uh, commitment and decision, right? Right? We have intent and in commitment and all of these things, but until we actually take action, like this irrevocable step, we've never made a decision. And that was the thing that was missing for me. As I'm sitting there floating in limbo, just holding on to my story and holding on to my pain, and trying my hardest to be a good boy for my dad, because I was never good enough for my daddy, you know what I mean? And I finally just let go of that, and I went down to Peru and went out in the jungle and spent 3 weeks out there doing ayahuasca ceremonies with these incredible people, and it just blew me wide open. it just, I went through this process of just being stripped down and cleaned out and scrubbed out. And then one of the ceremonies began where I was just sitting there thinking, waiting for the ayahuasca to start kicking in. And as I'm sitting there thinking, suddenly I see my thoughts in front of me. My thoughts are kind of going in this loop right there. And it was the first time in my life I ever became aware of the fact that I am not my thoughts. You know, it was like, holy shit. And my thoughts literally said, oh shit, he knows. And they sort of halfway went on this little jog for a minute, and then they were like, well, let's stop pretending, right? And they just disappeared. No more thoughts, no more identity, no more beliefs, or it just pure being, right? It's pure being. And it was like coming home. It was like remembering. It was the most profound experience I'd ever had up to that point. And I just left me in tears. Like I cried for 2 days after that, just as tears of gratitude. And literally what happened was the ayahuasca showed me this experience of myself, just being present with myself, completely 100% present. And it said, this is who you are. Now go figure out how to live that. Right? So you get like this window opens up and you get this glimpse, and then it closes back up again. And then you go back to your life and all your same shit is there. Your same problems and your same, everything's still there.
Right.
The ayahuasca doesn't fix anything.
Exactly.
Right? And so I just went on this incredible, epic journey, this process of just taking down these walls. And it was like, what is standing in the way? That was my question. What is standing in the way of me experiencing that truth that I experienced then? What is keeping me from experiencing that now?
In every moment.
And in every moment. And I think this is where it's important when people work with the plants, the ayahuasca or whatever they be. In my experience, this is such an essential point to grasp that that you get shown something, but you've got to go apply it. And too many people, what they do is they say, well, that I had this profound experience. The way to get back to that is to go do more ayahuasca.
Right. That was the point. That was a point I was going to get to. So I'm glad I just allowed that to arise. So continue.
Yeah. And so in that process and going on that journey, I mean, it tore my marriage fell apart, and we had to start untangling and getting present to all the codependency and all the, all the stuff that we had created. And I started getting present to my relationship with my son, because that was another thing that the ayahuasca really opened me up to realize, is that what I was doing with my son was recreating my father. And it was this whole thing of I don't feel accepted by my father, And it was really profound, because when I came back from Peru, my son, who was 4 years old at the time, 4, almost 5, we hadn't cuddled since he was a baby. He just preferred to cuddle with mama, because there was that separation when she left me in Costa Rica and went over there. There was sort of that left him with a wound, And he come over to me on my side of the bed the night that I got back, and crawled into bed to cuddle with me. And I just broke down in tears, And it was just this realization of how much these inner stories that we create our external reality.
Right.
Boom.
Yeah.
Boom. And so
when you sit like that, it's beautiful. When you come close and lift your camera up a tiny bit, I just lose your eyes a little bit. Love to see your eyes.
Good there? Perfect.
Yeah, very nice.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
carry on.
yeah, it's sort of a like I said, it's been an epic journey, and the best part of it is just beginning, really. But one thing has led me to another, and I ended up connecting with a woman in Colombia, which in itself is I don't know. This is quite a long story, but I'm trying to give you the Reader's Digest version, the condensed version. Somewhere in the middle of my process, about halfway through, like when I was still going through the deepest shit and just purging all kinds of stuff, and I was separated from my wife, and I woke up in the middle of the night, about 2 o'clock in the morning. Just got woken up with this really strong impression that said, organize an ayahuasca retreat. And I'm just like, what the hell, you know? Like I'm just trying to figure out my own shit. I'm still trying to figure stuff out. Like this is not my bag. So I just kept shoving it off, and it kept coming up really strong. So after a couple of weeks of this, I said, okay, I'm going to do it. And I start trying to make it happen, and nothing would happen. And I would get frustrated, and I would say, fine, fuck it, I'm not doing it. You know? And in that moment, the moment that I would let go, suddenly a piece that I was looking for would suddenly just come all by itself. You know, this connection would be made, or this door would open that I had been trying to pound open. And I slowly started to grasp how this works. You know, it's like your job is just to hold the space and let it happen by itself. And so I did that. One thing led to another, and I got connected to this woman in Colombia, incredible shaman healer. She's from the Ingano tribe, and her name's Doña Martha, and she has since become my teacher. I'm apprenticing with her to work with these plants. And the weeks before I went down to Colombia to meet her for the first time, I started getting this really interesting message, and I really kind of shoved it off to the side, because it kind of seemed like you know, maybe my ego was getting in the way, or maybe this is just delusions of grandeur, or, you know, whatever it might be, right? But what I kept getting was this message, and it was very specific, and it was very precise. And so when I got to Colombia and I met Doña Martha, and she's showing me around the grounds down there, she's got this incredible place, beautiful mountainside property. And I'm like, I've been here before. I know I've been here before. And she's telling me about how 15 years ago she was given the instructions, guidance to build this place in preparation for the work that she's going to be doing. And she turns to me and she says to me this absolute matter of fact, like, I know this and you know this, and this is just how it is. And she's like, I've been waiting for you. She says, you, and this, by the way, this, what she said next was what I had been getting. This was the message I had been getting and kind of ignoring or setting aside. She said, you are going to be like this shepherd who gathers up the people and brings them down here to reconnect to their indigenous self. Right? And my jaw, my jaw just dropped. Like, I'm like, okay. You know, I mean, up until that point, I was like, yeah, this really kind of, you know, like I said, delusions of grandeur. You're going to be this shepherd that, you know, but fuck that. It's like, if you get the truth and you recognize the truth, and you can keep your humility and still own that this is, you know, what you're here to do.
This is your dream.
And yeah, this is what I breathe for. And so it's been this process where I've been being, you know, taught and guided and shown how to do my job. This was my job. You know, I got really clear on my purpose, and my purpose is to restore my world to its native state of love, joy, and connection to the earth.
Beautiful.
And that's what I breathe for. And so having that clarity of my purpose has really, really helped me to to be able to refine the focus of what I do, because you know, what I've learned, what these plants have taught me, is that it before you can really get clear on your purpose, you know, everybody's is asking themselves, what should I do? Right? What do I do? What am I supposed to be doing? And I think that's the wrong question to start with. I think that the question really before that, prior to that, is how am I supposed to be going about it? Right? You got to have your path before you can even figure out your plan. And I think the question prior to the how is the why.
Of course, there it is.
Yeah, and there's that gentleman that has that TED talk, that
Simon
really popular
Sinek.
TED talk. Yeah, that guy, and he talks about that, starting with the why.
Yeah,
You got to understand the why, so you got to understand your purpose. But what I've found in my experience is that there's a question that comes prior to that, and we totally miss this. And before you can answer why accurately, you have to answer who. You know, who am I? Because the who is the base point for everything else. An eagle who thinks he's a chicken is going to think that his purpose is to scratch for worms in the dirt, right? And so getting clear on that who is one of the great gifts of the plants, because what the plants really wake you up to, and I don't know what your experience with plants is or isn't, but I really get the sense from you that you have this love and this connection and this appreciation for nature and for the natural, and I find that people with the kind of energy and resonance that you have, which I very much enjoy and appreciate, are people that have usually had some experience with plants of some kind. So I'm curious to know what your experience has been.
Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, beautiful.
Yeah.
Well, first of all, I just want to acknowledge that beautiful story and offering. I had this thing today that I love how it unfolds. I was going to say, yeah, I really want to just dive in with story today and ask Levi, or Levi, which I've been calling you, which you said is called, you know, just to share a little bit of, you know, just trot back and bring us up to speed with your story. And you just did that naturally, which is lovely.
Yeah.
We didn't need to go as far back as you know, because that's what I wanted to do. I want to give you the space to share your story. So first of all, I want to acknowledge your transparency and the story and the dance that you've had and the journey you've had and the beautiful, you know, synchronistic unfolding that's taken place. And now that you're stepping into that even more, and I know even this is all for everybody viewing, this is all happening and unfolding as we speak, because Levi's just put his website live and he's been doing a few things, and you know, and that was one of the reasons why I wanted to create this talk as well, just to co-create and spread this message that you're sharing. To dive in with your question, it's quite interesting, because I didn't know it was going to lead to ayahuasca until I received your newsletter the other day, and you share this nice little, when somebody subscribes to your website, you share this little reply to them, and you know, it's in your friendly manner as you do, and it says, you know, God knows what's happening, I don't know, could have been the ayahuasca, who knows, you know, and you just got this sort of like friendly vibe, which is really approachable and beautiful, and I think needed, because I haven't had any experience with ayahuasca or much plant medicine, but this is why it's beautiful, because I mean, other than taking a hell of a lot of drugs on a recreational level for 15 years and then having a few experiences with mushrooms and stuff like that, you know, any sort of drug taken that I was a part of was very much just about getting high, going out clubbing,
escaping.
maybe. Yeah, escaping, and you know, and hunting down some sort of sexual encounter, and thinking you're free in that hedonistic, deluded way, right?
Yeah.
So what's really phenomenal for me, and something I speak to my partner with, is that we've found ourselves in this place of the full awareness of the miracle, full awareness of honoring nature, connecting to the gift of life, you know, connecting to the you know, the infinite wisdom and intelligence that's out there and continues to pour through, the unconditional love. For whatever reason, something just did a little bit like maybe what it did to you, but blasted me and kicked me in the butt in 2007, 2008, when I fell in love with a woman. Thought I was falling in love with just this woman and having a bit of a honeymoon period, but realized I fell in love with myself and the whole planet. So I had this like massive, whatever you could call it, if you're thinking about Carl Jung and some of those guys out there, you know, it's a peak experience that happened. And then what happened is that obviously I went through that same process where it was, you know, and continues to be so even in the last retreat, continues to be so in the last retreat, which is just a complete stripping down, like you said, to the bones, right? Complete stripping down, and it's been stripping down the stories, stripping down the attachments, the entanglements, the codependencies, the neediness, you know, just continually stripping away what's not real. And that's pretty much been the dive that I'm on, and that's been transparent communication birthed out of that. These conversations are part of that still continual stripping away. If you looked at some of my first conversations and the ones now, you'd be like, oh man, you know, I'm just like on live for the world, just showing my whole like, you know, unfolding, stripping away through video.
That's so beautiful, though. That's just such a beautiful vulnerability. That's a gift. You know, it's a gift that you definitely give the world in doing it that way. So I get to acknowledge that.
Yeah,
I really do.
Yeah, so that was but when we come full circle back to the ayahuasca, I've had this, you know, I've met so many people, and it'd be lovely to hear what your thoughts are on this, but I've met so many people that have, you know, found the ayahuasca, right? And it sort of started to become a little bit of a commercial thing. Even that guy, you know, who sent a message to us on the Facebook, if he's watching tonight, you know, he's like, I don't like people talking about indigenous tribes and indigenous and nature. And you've got everybody now that puts on a sort of shaman jacket and starts saying that they're shamans and that they're connecting to the, you know, the mission. And I know people that are using ayahuasca and it's still just using it as a denial process and a numbing down of what they're really wanting to do. You know, they've moved their heroin addiction and their cocaine addiction over to the ayahuasca, and they're drinking it from the fridge in the morning, right? So, you know, so the thing is I've been very weary, and again, I speak to my beautiful partner who's just here listening in, and like we talk like I'm saying, am I being called to do ayahuasca? Should I do ayahuasca? You know, I've taken so many drugs. Should I go and do ayahuasca now? Is that what and then I'm going, well, actually, at the moment, I hear I know it's out there, and I've met friends. I even gave it to my friend who who's maybe watching this, who I used to be a criminal with, and he got himself in jail and only got out of jail about 2 years ago now. And I was like, he was going to go back into crime, back into drugs. And I thought, well, man, I'm just going to get him to go on an ayahuasca ceremony. You know, it's like try and find him an access point out, you know. So I got him connected to a tribe that I knew, and made a few contacts, and he went and did it. And look, you know, he came back to me the first time and he said, nothing much happened. I think I needed a higher dose, and nothing. I didn't connect to anything. And I was like, but don't go there with expectations, and like, you're not trying to get a high, right? You're just going to see what the experience is. Yeah, just go with the flow. He goes, well, I'm going back. I'm going to take a bigger dose. And he goes, it's felt a bit like ecstasy, man. Yeah, definitely felt the love, man. I was feeling the love, definitely feeling the love. And I was like, okay, but you're not going there to get high, dude, right? It's just like go with the flow, see what the message is. Just don't go there with any expectations. And I don't know where he's at now, but I know that he went back and did another ceremony. And what happens, Levi, I'm mixing the two now, right? Levi, is that I hear what you're saying, and I know that these medicines are potent, and I know that there's a sacredness to them, and I know that they're reconnecting people to something greater than themselves, and they're given that window, like you said, but it's not doing the work. So what's happened is it seems that what I'm coming across is so many people, even with Vipassana, you know, people are doing 50 Vipassana sits, and they're still not even changing their actions. Right? Yeah. They're sitting in silence for 10 days, and coming out and just hitting the drugs, hitting the liquor, being disrespectful to themselves and others. And I'm just like, wow, you know, it clearly isn't plugging some people in to the, you know, to the message or the vastness of of what and who we are. So maybe you can pick up from some of what I've shared there for people listening, because I think sometimes people think they started to say, well, if I haven't done ayahuasca, then I need ayahuasca. That's going to give me the message. That's going to tell me who I am and tell me the path. So let's go from there.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love the points that you bring up, because these are some things that are really critical when people come to me and they want to work with the plants. These are some points that I'm always really careful to cover with people. Working with the ayahuasca can be a really profound experience, right? Or it can be just some thing that you check off your bucket list.
Right.
Right. And I think way too many people are bucket listing the ayahuasca in the first place. But the other thing too is that these plants are not a be all end all, and they're not, if they serve any purpose at all, it's the purpose of giving you a glimpse of your own greatness.
Right.
Giving you a glimpse of the truth of who you are, and when used properly, when used in the right kind of context, and this is where Doña Martha is incredibly gifted, and the process that we do when we bring groups down to Colombia and work with them down there, is the way that it works is first of all, if you understand kind of the concept, I'm going to explain a concept, and this is going to be a concept for people, but I think a concept's a good place to start, and you work towards an experience, right? But the concept that I'm going to introduce people to is a concept that maybe possibly you don't live life, maybe possibly life lives you, right? And that's something that we get to surrender to. We really get to surrender. And I say get to because that is one of the greatest, most blessed experiences that I've ever had, was learning how to just surrender myself and let life lead me,
Exactly.
and that happens through recognizing who I am. That's what we were talking about earlier, right? It starts with the who, and recognizing that who I am, what I am, is a vessel. Nothing more, nothing less. I'm a vessel of life, of consciousness, if you will. Right? I'm like a lens. If you have a magnifying glass and you use it to start a fire, it's not the magnifying glass that starts the fire, right? Which is what we're trying to do here. We're trying to start a fire that will warm the world. And so we get to recognize that we are a lens for consciousness. That's what this body is, just a vessel, and it's really filthy. It's really fucking filthy right now. We've been cooking dinner in a dirty pot. Right? That's it's one of Doña Martha's euphemisms. She says you're cooking dinner in a dirty pot, and that's why your meal tastes so bad. And the filth is all of the sludge, these stories, these energies, these traumas, these things that we have stored in our body, in our memory. Say what?
Pain body.
Yeah, absolutely. So cleaning that off, and those are the things that are creating these misperceptions, this distortion of this light that is supposed to be coming through this glass, and we can't see it for all the filth, right? It's really hard to experience sometimes. And you start to scrub that out. And that's, I think, the main, or the initial purpose of something like ayahuasca, is it's a really powerful tool when used by in a space with somebody who knows how to work with the ayahuasca, as Doña Martha does. I mean, she's an incredibly gifted healer. I've done a lot of ceremonies with a lot of people, and I've never seen anybody that has the connection she has. And I think that's really, really critical. to be present to who you're doing it with and what kind of a space that you're doing it in, as well as the intentions that you have going into it. But once you get through the process where you've really started to clean out the gunk and you started to bring this vessel into more of a alignment, then it shifts from a cleaning to an education. It can do that for you.
Yeah.
And Danya Martha and I would joke about it being like you're stepping into the University of God, right? And the plants are the professors. And so you start to get some guidance and some direction on what is your purpose. Now you start to understand a little bit more of what you are and who you are, and you've experienced that aspect. Now, what's the purpose? Why did life decide to take the shape and the form of you? What is the purpose behind that?
Exactly.
And you get to receive that, right? Which is one of the things that we were talking about Charles earlier. It's one of my great inspirations in my journey, Charles Eisenstein. And one of the things he says in The More Beautiful World Our Hearts Know Is Possible is he talks about how many people we start out with the intention to create our vision, right? And it's what a lot of these empowerment trainings do that I've seen and experienced is, create your vision, get your vision board up, decide what you want your life to look like, which, it's cool. But he says that's sort of a, I don't know if he actually said it's a mistake, but he says the way to do it is you receive your vision. And it's such a profound difference, such a powerful difference. And I've found for me in my life that is so true in allowing and receiving that guidance from life. It has put me on a phenomenal, way more incredible and mind-blowing than anything that I ever could have made up in my own fantasy and imagination.
Exactly. And also that comes from the what you mentioned earlier, though, that comes from the surrendering to what wants to come through you as a vessel, right? Because like when the love, what I call the love, when the love hit me and it just took me out of this out of the path of being an actor, out of the path of trying to seek fame, fortune, and trying to feed the society that we both know is part of the numb pain body and unconscious aspect of our being. When I realized that, it was like, at first it was, like you said earlier, there's a hell of a lot of resistance. You're like, what? I've just spent 13 years, 14 years trying to go down that path. And now something's telling me to go this, what the hell's telling me to go this way? And then you follow it and you go, yes. And, I was calling it love leads the way, love finds the way, everything else finds suffering. But, it's like that takes over. And then you have to start to allow that and integrate that. And that brings with it, like you said earlier, a whole heap of challenging and stripping away along with it. And you have to find processes to strip away, and beautiful people along the path, and great conversations, and and dissecting the pain body, and hopefully have somebody like your brother or a few people around you can support you and point out when you're in that old whatever you want to call it. I just name it the pain body, or the shadow self, or the black rubber clown suit. But whenever you're in that, numb, desensitized aspect of our being, then what comes clear, and I'm sure you see this, and this is what's beautiful. It's so beautiful me listening to you talk, because I've spoke to a lot of people that have done ayahuasca, but it's nice to do it right now, because I'm saying that I feel that we're seeing the same world, we're being led by the same force, we're surrendering to that same greater version of ourselves, that that more beautiful world that wants to birth through us as evolution itself. And I haven't had the medicines lead me, but it's the forces leading. How the vision, how the message comes through to you, can be many different access points. Am I right?
Absolutely, and that's one thing that I really wanted to emphasize, is that it doesn't, like, ayahuasca is not a necessity. And the way that I look at it is, and what I tell people is, if it's calling to you, do it. If it's not calling to you, find out what is.
Right.
Right? Because the ayahuasca is one of an incredibly diverse amount of access points, as you call them, into that space, is the first thing. And the second thing is that even if you do choose to do ayahuasca, I think it's incredibly important to recognize and realize that it's a stepping stone. That these plants are a stepping stone, and that it should not be something that develops into a lifestyle
or a dependency.
And I say that a dependency, yeah. And I say that lifestyle in the terms of, like you're talking about, these people who are waking up and swigging ayahuasca, every morning or once a week or whatever. Like I personally, the last time that I've done anything with the plants is back in July, right? Because I went to school, I went to class, sat down with the professors, got my instructions, got my guidance, got my teaching, and I got a homework assignment. And that's how it works, right? And if you don't go home and do the homework assignment, the next time you come back to class, you're just going to be sitting through the same lecture again. And again, and again. And pretty soon the professor's going to be like, oh, there's that idiot that keeps sitting in the back of the class doing the same lesson over and over again. All right, you want to be here?
I've seen her face before, man. I've seen his face before.
Yeah, he keeps coming to class, but he's not going home and doing the homework. All right, cool.
And as you say that, just to speak to that, as you say that, this is no different than even today. I've started to call myself the pain body slayer. Okay. So you might start seeing some slaying come out into the world for me. This is my new mantra. I'm the pain body slayer, because just the last 2 days, and maybe he's watching. A very good friend of mine, Alden, might be watching, and also a friend of mine, Monica, last night. This two situations happened last night and today, where two beautiful friends have come to me, and they just come in with their agreements and their stories and their attachments to those agreements and stories, which are not their own, but they're living their life based on that. And there's a real clear message coming through me at the moment, which is that just a real distinction between the story of unworthiness, the story of I'm not good enough, the story of blame, shame, guilt, I'm upholding a society that I know is dysfunctional, but I don't know what to do different. The story of upholding the lies of our, the agreed lies of our, consensus collective reality that has birthed the societies that we've seen, and the dysfunction and the child abuse and the sex trafficking and all of the crap that we are witnessing day in, day out, and all shocked at, but don't know how to really deal with, right? That reality, it's really clear to me that that those agreements are null void, and that we as individuals can say enough, no more. I'm not acquiescing to those agreements and stories anymore. I can clearly see what they create. I can see what they brought to my own life, and that is not the path of life. That is the path of love. That is in fact the track of fear. That is in fact the suppression, the depression, the separation, the unworthiness, and the story of what's the other story? Not just the core unworthiness, but the one we listened to. Don Miguel Ruiz talks a lot about this. From I was listening to the Voice of Knowledge recently, and Don Miguel calls it the I can't remember the one, but it's basically around unworthiness. So what happens now is people are coming to me and they're in those stories, and with a bit of dialogue and a bit of listening, it's really becoming easy just to bring awareness to those stories, and then literally move out of them and plug in to the bigger story, the magic, the mystery, the wonder, the infinite possibilities, the divine grand creators that we are, the accelerated connection to collaboration and to unity and co-creation, the noosphere, and the meme of love, the more, just this really consciously partaking in the creation of a more beautiful world. No shitting. And it's
absolutely,
and that is really where it's getting exciting, massively exciting.
Absolutely, and your passion, by the way, is infectious. I love it, just the way that you communicate that, and there's a lot of resonance for me with you, Simon. I really appreciate this conversation. I get to express that appreciation right now, and one of the things that brought up for me is that there gets to be this acknowledgement that this is the shift that is happening right now. You're talking about people, people saying, I'm cooperate. I've been cooperating or even co-creating these stories, these unconscious agreements that I'm now starting to realize are absolute bullshit, absolute lies,
Right.
that have been perpetuated. And this is where I really would love to explore this part of the conversation with you a little bit more, because I want to emphasize the fact that for me, what I do is not about the ayahuasca. It's not about the plants. In fact, that's a very small part of the vision and the purpose for me. Those are I guess you could call them tools. I think tools is a very empire culture word to use, but those are some things that assist in the process, right? But that is not the process. That is not the purpose, and that's not where we're heading with this. And for me, like getting down to the nitty gritty of what is the source of these pain bodies? What is the source of these collective agreements that are creating all of these atrocities in the world, and the child sex trafficking and the destruction of the environment, and the acceleration of all of these things, even, right? Despite the fact that we've become more aware and we can like to consider ourselves to be an enlightened civilization in so many degrees, and yet the
He dropped off. He dropped off. So you see, they cut us out just when he said we seem to be an enlightened civilization. It was like, so you just have me for a little while. This is like the live interlude while we wait to get Levi back. He should just join back in. So yeah, if you're listening and diving into this, and this is the first time in terms of like even exploring what ayahuasca is, or Vipassana meditation, or just these ways of deconstructing our identities. What I just said earlier, there's an amazing author called Don Miguel Ruiz, who's written a number of books, but the ones that I've read and listened to on audio are The Four Agreements, Mastery of Love, The Voice of Knowledge, and the Fifth Agreement, which I just read recently. And actually the story and agreements, he one of the ones he was talking about, which I just forgot a moment ago, was the story of imperfection, which we agreed to. And we're not imperfect. Yeah, nobody's imperfect. You are a magnificent miracle, your creation. And and this is a filtered through line of everything. When you start to fully love yourself, when you start to fully embrace this gift of life, this unique expression of life that you've been given, yeah. And really, like, what does that really mean? Who am I? It's like Levi said, this miracle, this manifestation of life. Then when you start to plug into a whole new story, you start to love yourself, love the planet, love the earth, and you really do start to see that these stories are not you. These agreements are not you. So I really encourage you to explore those books if you haven't. And these books are not the answer as well. Just like, like ayahuasca is not one answer. Charles Eisenstein, Polly Higgins, so many, Joanna Macy. I mean, there's so many messengers out there that are just expressing this in the way that I'm expressing it, that have connected to something far greater than themselves, as the identity of the single individual who seems to just need to go and get a job and is separate and has no support and is lonely and struggling on their own. That also is bullshit. It's an agreement that isn't true. And there's a new world being written, and you're part of it. So, and you're here listening to this, which is no coincidence. What did I say? Yeah, no coincidence. Support me. And here, look, Here he is. He's back, just as I said he would be.
I had a full charge on my phone, but apparently we burned through that a lot quicker than I expected. So
Yeah.
here I am.
We're burning full power. No problem. I gave a little interlude about agreements and recommended some books and remembered one of the agreements was the story of imperfection. But please, let's pick up. You were saying something really lovely there. Can you remember where you were when you stopped? If not, we can backtrack. Feel free just to continue.
I just get into the sort of the general message, and I think, as I was saying before, my purpose is to restore my world to its native state of love, joy, and connection to the earth. And when we look at this thing that we've created with society, we have this distorted view of who we are, right? Clearly. And this is the basis of all of the distortion that we see in the world.
Right.
And this is where getting clear on the who is such a critical process. And so what I was getting at is that the ayahuasca or the mushrooms or whatever it is that a person is working with, those are powerful tools, but they're just a one resource among many. And the real point, I think, of the shift that's happening in the world right now is for us to come to a really clear awareness of the truth of who we are. Right? We lived for 190,000 years. Homo sapiens was doing pretty good, right? And a lot of people look back on that as it was primitive. It was nasty, brutish, and short, right? And I think that Charles Eisenstein and a lot of other authors have really debunked that myth. And when we look at Native American and really just indigenous cultures all over the world, we can see that that not only did that way of life work back then, it has continued to work all the way up to the present day. But people think that when we talk about a moving past civilization, everybody throws their arms in the air because the common misperception is that we're talking about putting on our loincloths and grabbing our spears and going and running through the woods again.
Exactly.
Right? And I don't want to give up my.
No,
that's kind of that's
go back. Sorry.
Responses.
Wait there. Go back. We freezed, and you said you don't want to give up, and then it froze.
Hold on a second. I'm having a hard time hearing your.
Can you hear me now?
There you are. Let me see if the signal shifts if I move over here a little bit.
Yeah, move over a bit closer to the box.
Yeah. Okay.
Soon we'll be able to communicate without the Wi-Fi. We're getting close.
Yeah. So I think
you said you don't want to give up. Go from. You said I don't want to give up, and we don't have to go back to being in loincloths and so on. And I don't want to give up, and then it cut.
Yeah, I think that's kind of the common response for a lot of people is I don't want to give up my I don't want to give up all these luxuries. Look what civilization has done for me, right? But that really just kind of reveals the degree of the ignorance that we have created for ourselves, because we don't understand just how disconnected that makes us from our water, for example. How disconnected that makes us from our food, from everything, and so if you look at, I think Daniel Quinn is one of the really inspirational authors in this area. But there's a lot of people that have really taken apart the myth of civilization, and I was having a very interesting conversation with the Uber driver earlier this morning. And he was talking about how he says, you know, it's really clear that we're driving off a cliff, you know, and if we don't do something pretty soon, it's all going to shit. And and it's funny because what we actually did is we jumped off the cliff a long time ago.
Right.
We jumped off that cliff 10,000 years ago when we started storing large quantities of food and mass producing agriculture. And we look at that, our culture has this myth of that being this great turning point, this moment of great awakening and renaissance of humanity. And that was the birth of civilization. And a lot of people that read these things, they look at that as being like a mistake, right? Civilization was a great mistake. If they're coming from the one side, you know, these primitive anarchists, for example, and other people consider civilization to be the great achievement of mankind. And for me, I just look at it and I say, civilization has served its purpose. It's really helped us to highlight the degree to which we can separate ourselves from our true self, the degree to which we can go into a collective psychosis and really lose contact with the truth. So it gives us a contrast. It has given us a beautiful contrast of darkness to be able to appreciate the light of who we really are. And the interesting thing that this Uber driver had said is, he said, you know, there's two groups of people. He says there's a group of people that say humanity's got to go, and the other group that says humanity's got to figure out how to survive. You know, and I think that's so interesting because we are so tightly identified with this culture that we live in, this empire culture. We're so tightly identified with it that our solution to the problem is to kill off humanity before we actually kill off the culture itself.
Right. We
don't separate that. We don't make that distinction between I as a human being am not necessarily this culture.
Right.
You know?
And that's, you know, and it's funny because that comes up because when we look at the pain itself, when we look at like you said earlier, at the core of what these pain bodies are and these emotional pains and these actions that we see, at the very core of that, it seems to want to consume itself anyway, right? The pain body wants to consume itself. It's like that's the path that it takes. It seems to its only identity, its only life is in the, you know, the creating more suffering, creating more pain, creating more conflict. So if we look at it from that perspective, then clearly that is the path, the trajectory that the suffering wants to take, right? It wants to consume itself like a fire that will continue to burn until it's burned everything else in its path, right? And then it just becomes that which it is, the pure flame, the fire. So the question I have for you, and as you're talking, it's beautiful, lovely part that we've got to, and I can feel the energy changes now as we dance into this area of maybe where we are as a collective. So if the two things that come up, and if this isn't the way we want it to go, don't worry, just come back with anything else that you feel you need to bring to the conversation. But two things come up is, obviously we need to look at death. Then also we need to look at, like, so much needs to die within us, and has died within me, and has died within you, and continues to die in order for us to really step into that full essence of who we are, even beyond what I might even think I am right now. I know that there's layers to drop away, right? So as we step more and more into the more pure or truer aspect of ourselves, whatever that shows us as we continue to dissect and strip away. My question is when we start to look at like being an infinite being and being this grand creative reality and evolution in motion and just a vessel, you know, sometimes I question, so this has to happen. What's happening has to happen, right? You know, because it's happening anyway. Meaning that, you know, I speak for myself, I don't know what this so-called future holds. I live with my hope and my optimism that, you know, this shift, this awareness, this collective consciousness is morphing and moving into a more beautiful, co-creative, you know, as I said earlier, unified way of coming together with solutions and systems that serve the whole, and don't you know, don't rip our resources apart, and don't create pollution. And that because we've seen so much of the darkness and the pollution and everything that we're witnessing, for me it's sort of clear to go, well, yeah, we can create the, you know, we can experience the opposite, right? We can experience the connection, the unity, the collaboration, everything. For me, it seems quite like, yeah, common sense. But, you know, is it just maybe we have to go into this sixth extinction and wipe out as a collective? And does the essence of you and I does that even wipe out? You know, or does it just move form? Are we actually shifting form? So this is just some of the things that come up for me as we dive a bit deeper into, you know, looking out and seeing what's not working and where we may be evolving to in our consciousness.
Oh man, and that I love where we get to go. There's so many things. There's so many things that brings up for me. But and one of them is the thing you said there was that we need to. I think you said we need to look at death. Something along those lines.
Yeah.
And I would say let's change the language on that, because I think what it is we get to look at death. We really get to look at that, and we get to look it in the face for what it is, and embrace it, because, you know, anybody that's actually gone through that process of allowing themselves to die to what they thought they were will understand that death and life are two sides of the same coin, you know. And exactly. So I think that it's really beautiful, some of the things that you bring up there, when we look at where this is all going. Well, who knows? Nobody knows, right? One thing is really clear to me. Whether it happens in your lifetime or my lifetime is not so clear, but I guarantee that it will happen within the lifetime of my children, and that is that this will be the most pivotal moment in the history of mankind, and it will be one of two things: either we do go extinct, or there is a unprecedented renaissance. And to me, that's what this movement has been pulling me towards and leading me towards, and I just slowly come to more clarity and more clarity on that, to come to realize that what's starting to happen now is there's this undercurrent, like a tsunami, you know, it moves through the ocean undetected at this incredible speed, but as it starts to near the shore, it's starting to surface, and that's what is happening now. I feel it, you feel it, people are feeling it everywhere, and what that tsunami is a renaissance, a tribal, indigenous, value-based renaissance. We are coming back, the pendulum is swinging back, and it's time, you know, this is the great journey that we all get to go on, is to wake up and realize that we are all indigenous. And it is such such an ironic, sort of a dark humor in the fact that we even coined the word non-indigenous. And it's the people who think themselves to be non-indigenous that like to invent words like that, you know. And you mentioned in the beginning of the conversation, you mentioned my dear friend and brother Asia, who left that comment. He was commenting about, I have a problem with you guys talking about tribes and tribalism and indigenous, and he says it feels like colonialism to me, you know, this another version of colonialism. And I totally get one thing about Asia that I really love is he is very much a champion and a passionate advocate for indigenous rights and preservation of indigenous peoples and values and things like that. But to me, taking that stance, that viewpoint, does two things. Number one, it perpetuates the separation that we make. It's time to wake up. It's time to wake up and say, you know what? We're all indigenous, and we want to start owning that. And it's not colonialism to say, I want my tribe. I want my roots in the earth. I want my rituals and my ceremonies and my traditions. And I want the things that are in my DNA. We evolved as tribal beings. Dogs run in packs, lions run in prides, birds flock, humans tribe. You know, we've heard it before. What that gets to look like, that's up to each one of us.
Yeah.
You know, but you made a comment earlier that really brought something up for me, and I don't remember the comment was, but I do know the point that it brought up, and that is that we each individually, it's up to each one of us individually, and that is such a critical realization for us to come to, is to wake up and realize you're the one, Neo, right? You're the one. And this is the journey that we all get to make. We get to start to step into that other world and transcend the boundaries of our own limitations and go through that hero's to come to the realization and go, you know what? I am the one. And why am I the one? Because I fucking say so. Because I stood up and said, I choose to create something different. I choose to transform my experience of reality. I choose to recognize myself as the source of creation, but not in this new agey, ego-filled way, but in the sense that I am a vessel for something far greater than me. I had dinner last night with a Mayan elder, Francisco, and his wife, who came up. I'm in Salt Lake City, and it's right now the World Parliament of Religions is going on. It happens to be the second year that they've acknowledged indigenous spirituality in the religious gatherings of the world. And Francisco and his wife, very beautiful, humble people, this Mayan elder, and he was talking about how in the Mayan tradition there are these cycles. There's 3 cycles in the cosmos, right? There's the natural cycles of the planets and the seasons and the all these things that are going on naturally, and then you have the cycles of the body, so your digestion and your sexual cycles and different things like that, and these are all interrelated. It's like you have this inner microcosm, which is I just barely put that together, microcosm and cosmos. But yet we are this microcosm of the cosmos, of the macrocosm, is what he was basically explaining. And the problem that we have, as he put it, is that we have come to see ourselves as separate from the cosmos.
Right.
We are separate from it. We're above it. We are. It's somehow supposed to be our dominion, and that's even built into our religions. You know, I mean, I think it's somewhere in the Bible or something along the lines of we're supposed to be lords and dominions over the earth, or something like that. It's been a long time since I read the Bible, but like I just would invite people to consider the possibility that rather than the earth being created for our benefit, that maybe possibly we were created for the earth's benefit. You know, maybe it works the other way.
Yeah, there's a lot. There's a lot to ponder there, and I'm gonna. Yes, something's coming through for me. Very much on the just staying with the deaf, because I love the deaf. And you said, and this idea of transcending the limitations that we've created upon ourselves, which sort of coincides with what this conversation's been around story and stripping down, and in every stripping down there has to be a death, and in that death we then have to experience grief, And what everybody avoids more than anything in the whole wide world, which is change as we know it. And what does change bring? Change brings death. And at the core, our core fear of all fears is fear of death, right? Because one, we don't know where we're heading. Two, we don't know what the hell is this, you know, potentially humans have even created the next life, you know, future lives and all these other lives just in the pure scared, you know, terror of dying anyway, right? And diminishing this life. And also, I think sometimes people use the whole next life as also another denial, procrastinator aspect of ourselves, of not actually taking charge and responsibility in this life, you know, like, oh yeah, it's okay. You know, I've probably got a couple more lives to deal with. No, God damn it, you're here right now. Wake up, you know? So the thing I'd like to look at, and as you were speaking, I was listening to that, and, you know, and just listening to you, but also, you know, the mind and the thoughts, whatever those thoughts, as you know from your experience, they're just there whisking around. And is that what we're witnessing? And Stephen Jenkinson, who, if you're watching this and you're still with us this far, Stephen Jenkinson is a magnificent, in my mind, a magnificent messenger right now, based out of Canada. And he's written a number of books and spent a lot of time with people in palliative care and with them at the point of their death. And what he said is beautifully, that death feeds life, and that, you know, and that you are here not as, you know, not as the, I want to get this right in terms of what he's saying. It's like, you know, your life matters, but that isn't the be all and end all. It's that life itself continues, right? Yeah. It's that life itself continues. And so so the question comes to what is your contribution, like you said, to that something greater for the next generations to continue, and how do you want that to look and feel? But I want to say one other thing with the death. I'd love to hear what you got to speak to this. Is you said something which really sparked this thing. You said, like, right, I want to take responsibility that I'm here. This is it. This is me. You know, I want to claim this life. This is how it is. And when we look at that, we look at 7 billion people, and we look at 3 billion people don't even have electricity, don't even have connection to internet, health, or anything right now. And if we started to give them energy and electricity, and they got into the internet and started to access information and so on, you know, you're talking about half of our population right now, half of our collective tribe are still living like it's 2,000 years ago, right? They're living like there's they don't even have probably the potential to even contemplate some of what some of the so-called evolved world are. But what it is that I sometimes look at, you have to have a connection, or it seems like, I could be, you know, throwing this just out in there for pondering. If you don't have that deeper connection to yourself, if you don't fall in love with yourself, if you don't connect to yourself as a part of this magnificent, mysterious, phenomenal spectacle of this gift of life, if that doesn't take place and you don't have full consideration for yourself, then what I'm noticing is that inner transformation, you know, that personal inner transformation, that leads the way. You don't have to think about how you're going to communicate, how you're going to connect, how you're going to relate to the world. It's almost like you die to all of that other stuff that was holding you back. And then it leads the way. Nature takes the way, universe, whatever you want to call it, cosmos, like you said, that leads the way. That infinite intelligence pours through you. It's like that is the navigating system. So what it is, what it feels like is that you got to witness death. You've got to embrace death. Like you said, it's two sides. It's the same coin. You've got to like come into the death. You know, it's like, anyway, I'm getting like pumped up on the death, man. You need to share some words on this, because I'm just dancing in the death. But there's something in the death for me.
But death is, there is beauty in death. There is such transcendent beauty in death, because exactly what you're saying, because it is life. You know, the goddess Kali is such a great representation of the truth of what life really is, you know, what this divine mother really is, because it is life and death. It is, you know, that's one of the beauties of coming to realize the fullness of the truth. When we say, you know, we're all one, you know, I'm one with everything, and people kind of jump on that bandwagon. They go, yeah, I get it. Yeah, we're all one, right? But but what does that really mean? Well,
Yeah, exactly.
if you look at like the hero's journey, for example, every story, every movie, every book, every legend
Aha, we lost him again. Awesome to you live viewers that are with me still, with us. Thank you for being here. If you're watching this on replay and you've got this far, I want to say one thing, which is this. Transparent conversations, when I first started this, these conversations, you know, I said that you can't ever, you can open a circle, you can open a conversation, but you can't ever know when it's going to end. And the dance that I've had, I think he's coming back now. The dance I've had is that these conversations are needed to have their own life. They're needed to have their own, they're like a living organism in themselves. You can't just cut them off. So if you're with us still, awesome. Stay with us. Let's see where we explore to. Levi's disappeared again. Maybe his connection's gone now. Maybe this is the time to come to a close. Let's see where we're going. Death is something that, if this, you know, again, if your first time coming to one of these conversations, death pops up in a lot of my conversations. But it's like, if we can die now, if we can die to that which isn't us, and die to everything that isn't serving us, and embrace death and acknowledge death and see, like Levi said, see the beauty in the death. Can you see how that might transcend all of your fears and all of the other stuff associated to the judgment of death being negative, bad, and not, you know, in somehow not good? Something to ponder. All right, awesome, you're back.
I'm here, and I am so appreciating the lessons that technology is offering me today for what to prepare for in future Google Hangouts. So
it's all good. Let's rock and roll. I know, like, we're rolling here. I just was saying to the people watching, we're on a full transparent organism of a conversation unfolding as it goes. But yeah, please, you know, you was just saying about yeah, we were just talking about death and the beauty, and then you went into the hero's journey, and you were saying that you know, all the films, all the books, all the legends, and then it disappeared.
Okay, yeah. So this has been a huge thing for me. When I shared earlier that, you know, I went to Peru and had my first experience with the ayahuasca, and one of the things I got these instructions with at the very beginning, and just words that were given to me, you know, and one of them was tell the story. Right? And I'm like, what does that mean? Well, when I got back, I decided that means I'm supposed to write a book or tell a story about this profound experience I had in Peru. And so I started researching, I started writing all these things, and realized eventually that I needed some structure to my story. And so I started learning about story structure, and this is where I stumbled across the writings of Joseph Campbell, which is powerful, powerful stuff. And I started to learn about the hero's journey. And I was just looking at all the pieces of the hero's journey, and for weeks just trying to figure out where in this journey process, where do all the pieces fit? This trip to Peru and back, and this awakening and all these things that happened for me, where do they all fit? And after weeks of trying to fit the pieces all together, it finally dawned on me that I was just beginning the hero's journey, and that I didn't have the story finished yet. I needed to finish the story first before I could tell it.
Yeah.
And so I put the whole story away, and having that conscious awareness.
Lift your camera up.
Okay.
Nice,
having
nice.
that conscious awareness that this is the journey that I am on has made such a profound difference in understanding what I'm going through when I'm going through it. And so the hero's journey, just a real basic summary, is you're in the ordinary world, you're Neo, right? And you're searching for the answer to a question, and ostensibly the question is, you know, will I ever find love if it's a romantic movie, or what is the Matrix if you're Neo, or you know, who's my father if you're Luke Skywalker? But the truth behind all of those questions, the real question that every hero is asking, and if you had to guess, what would you say it is?
The real question between, say again?
The real question that every hero is really asking when they go on this journey, the question that they are trying to answer on this journey.
Yeah, it's one of two. It's either who am I or why am I here?
Yeah, it's who am I? Exactly what it is. That's the question behind who's my father. That's the question behind what is the matrix, and etc. Right? And so it was just interesting because it's what we were talking about earlier. Getting clarity on that question is the primary responsibility of every human being, right? And so we go on this journey, and you get this call to action. And the call to action is just something in your life is not in alignment, right? For me, you know, it was the birth of my son was the call to action in my story. And if you're Neo, you get a phone call, and you got these agents coming to grab you from the office, and you got to get out the window. You got to jump out the window and get out. And if you can just jump out that window and get out there, you're scot-free, right? But you get up to the window, and it's a scary fucking jump. And so you draw back in fear. That's called the refusal of the call. And for me, that happened, and I went down to Costa Rica, tried to jump out, but I came up face to face against the real problem, which is the problem of coming to know and understand and face things about myself, right? And so, you know, I withdrew, and I went back into the box of trying to fit myself in the box, and being really angry at being forced to be unwillingly participating in the civilization. That was my whole story I was living in, right? So the agents had got me, and they had planted that bug back in me, and I'd missed my opportunity to jump out the window, just like Neo. and yet eventually the call comes around again, which it did for me. And so usually you meet your mentor, you meet your Morpheus, and you're given some sort of talisman of some sort. And that happened with me through the ayahuasca. And you take the red pill. Ayahuasca was my red pill. And that's death. When you take that moment to cross, taking the red pill is the moment where you cross from the ordinary world into the magical world where transformation happens. And to do that, that's where death happens. This is the first time. Death happens 4 times in the hero journey, right? And that's just the moment where in the Matrix, I mean, isn't this what made the Matrix such an awesome, amazing movie? Is that the first time you saw it, nobody knew, nobody was prepared for what was about to happen. He takes that red pill, and suddenly this reality that he thought was reality is peeled back and revealed, and he comes to the realization that everything that he thought was true wasn't. And it's this horrific moment of absolute horror. And in the Matrix, this moment in any story, in any movie, and this is a huge lesson that I share with people as I take them through this process when they do their journeys, is to understand that the more epic that this scene is in your movie, the more epic the entire movie is. Because the more you are willing to die to yourself, the more you are willing to allow to fall away from what you believe yourself to be, the more epic the journey is going to be. It's just the nature of the thing. Yeah. And so you go through that process where you wake up and you get flushed down the tube, and you're drowning at the bottom of the at the bottom of the swamp, and you basically died, you know. Luke Skywalker does it in the trash compactor, where they almost die in the trash compactor, and as you breathe a sigh of relief, and they're climbing out of the trash compactor, and suddenly this tentacle reaches out and grabs Luke and pulls him back under the water, you know, and it makes it a more epic scene. And he's gurgling underwater, and you think he's dead. Just when you think the hero has died, he finally comes out gasping, right? It's epic. And it's it's the death that you go through. And then you go on this road of trials. And it's this process of learning and growing and learning in this magical world. You know, what are the do's and don'ts? What's the ups and downs? And you meet the goddess. It's another key point. Your Trinity, which is it's in this experience that represents unconditional love. You have this moment of experiencing unconditional love.
Right.
Just a taste, though. It's just a taste.
Yeah.
And after that comes temptation from the true path, right? Which is the guy who wants to go back into the matrix because this is so fucking hard. I just want to go back to the way things are, you know? And I'm sure you experienced that in your journey as at some point just going, oh my God, why can't I just go back to ignorance? You know, why can't I just go back to pretending like I'm this separate, you know, thing? Why do I have to take ownership of everything in my life? Why can't I pretend like I'm a victim of the world anymore? You know, but it's this realization that slowly leads up to the climax, and the climax is that second moment where we face death in the journey, and this is that moment, what Joseph Campbell called atonement with the Father, at one-ment with the Father. Right. So this is the moment where there's this horrific realization that that the fly in the ointment, that, you know, the hair in the soup, that everything that you've been othering and making bad and wrong is actually you. Right? And so you're Luke Skywalker, and you've been on this whole journey. You've been like, who's my father, first of all? But I'm a mighty Jedi, right? I'm answering the question of who am I? I'm a mighty Jedi, and I'm fighting the forces of evil. And Darth Vader represents all that is bad and wrong with this world. And I'm going to vanquish him, right? And he's battling and battling, and then Darth Vader says, Luke, I am your father, you know? And it's this, no! This epic moment of realizing that everything I've been seeking, everything I've been looking for, is everything that I've been making bad and wrong.
It's everything I've been making bad in my life.
Yeah. And that is a powerful moment of death, a really beautiful moment of death, that ownership begins to happen, and it brings the state of not catharsis, but apotheosis is what they call it. It's just peace. You arrive home. The interesting thing about the hero's journey, in my experience, is that it brings you the climax of the movie, that this apotheosis is actually home. It's the stillness. But then you've still got to go on this journey back to the ordinary world. You've gone on the journey, you've climbed the mountain, you've stolen fire from the gods. You've come to this realization. It's so powerful. But the hero, what makes you a hero, is you bring it back to the ordinary world. You bring it back to your tribe.
Yeah, same in Lord of the Rings, right? You got the ring, you got to take it back and go back and just live as Frodo with a Bigfoot. Yeah,
exactly. And so like, you know, you have these people that leave the tribe, and they go out and they discover the tribe's suffering. There's a drought going on, and there's no food, and people are suffering in the tribe. And somebody says, I'm going to go out and I'm being called on this journey. And they go out and they cross all these dangerous peaks and fight wild beasts, and they get to the other side and they find this beautiful valley, this paradise. Now, do you stay there? Or do you go back and let your tribe know, hey guys, I found it. Like, come on, let's go, right? Yeah. The people that don't come back, well, you never hear about them.
Yeah, which is a bit like, which is the same, I always say, is the same as like love. When you've got this love and this wealth and this abundance and you feel it, there's nothing you want to do to share it. And if you take that back into even hedonism and taking drugs in a recreational way, the first time you take, well, any drug that really makes you feel good, even if it's alcohol or even if it's ecstasy or MDMA, you want to go, hey guys, you've got to take this, try this. It's really good. We're going to have fun today. We're going to have a good time. You know, we're going to get present and touch each other and make love, and it's going to be awesome. You know, and you want to share. It's like a natural human instinct that wants to share, you know, that joy. But I suppose it's more about understanding what is that real joy and what is a sort of, you know, a bypass.
Yeah. Yeah, and also understanding that hero's journey that we go on is a journey that we go on over and over and over.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, I'm glad you said that.
the mistake that we often make is we forget that yesterday's enlightenment is today's ego trip.
Right, beautiful. And I'm so glad you said that, because my friend Yasmin, over here in Malta, she loves Joseph Campbell, you know, and you know, like this call, if anybody's still watching, right, if they're still with us, is this call is a hero's journey for some people. For us, it's like we have a hero's journey in this call. You can have a hero's journey on your way to the shop. You know, everybody, if they're willing to look at their life from that miraculous place, can actually look at the, you know, these journeys that we're on, right? Even when it comes to dis-ease, you know, even if they're dealing with a massive challenge in their life right now, you know, these are, when we step back and look at them, how you just described, from a more you know, a more meaningful space, maybe, you know, maybe looking at what the messages really mean, and what actual sovereign hero's journey we're really on. I mean, could you imagine if the whole of humanity started to realize that they were on a hero's journey, and they would look at their life with those eyes, how that would change the way that they respond, react, and interact with life?
Absolutely. And you know, it's like we consume so much. I used to watch a lot of movies. Like I would go out. There was a time in my life where I would go out on Friday when the new movies came out, and I would actually just go the whole weekend, like watch every new movie that came out, because I just wanted to go in and numb and consume, right? Because I was living vicariously through this. I hardly ever watch anything. And it's because my life has become so fucking epic that the movies are, unless there's something really, really beautiful and deep in it, I just lose interest really quickly.
Yeah,
you know?
But that's a great point that you bring up. That's a really key point, and a great message that you bring up there, is that, you know, Yasmin, again, she talks about this even when it comes to marketing and so on, is that more often than not, these films are giving us the dopamine hit, giving us the access point to make out we are living a movie. Like, even marketing does it all the time. It makes out like, if I wear this blue V-neck sweater, and I'm going to feel like a man, you know, I'm going to feel great, and it's going to bring out my blue eyes, and I'm going to be the one. I'm going to be the sexiest goddamn man in the world, right? And it's like, you go and buy that blue top, you know, and it just doesn't do it, right?
I think it works for you, but I think it's actually you that makes the sweater look good. I think that might be what's going on for you, Simon.
Yeah. See, because it does what you said. We realize that our movie is so magnificent. We are the director, the producer, the writer, the lead character. And this is what I did when I came out of the acting world, Levi. I said, I no longer want to be an actor in a make-believe movie that might be telling a story that I might get cast for. I want to be a superhero lead character in the real life movie. And that's, you know, that's the mission I went on. And that's the invitation for everyone, right? That's the invitation for everyone, because we're all part of this movie anyway. We're all in it regardless.
Absolutely. It's like that is the invitation, is, you know what? Wake up and realize you are the one. Go on that journey. Go on that journey, because right now the question is, they say many are called, but few are chosen. And I always say, who does the choosing?
Right.
You do. So choose. I make that choice. Wake up and say, you know what? I choose something different in my life today. I choose to take that step and commit myself in a way, to take a red pill in a way that I can never go back. I take that leap into the unknown. And even if it scares the shit out of me, if it kills me, I want to know the truth. I want to know, what is the matrix?
I think that feels good.
Yeah. It's been a beautiful conversation, Simon. I really, really, really appreciate the opportunity to connect with you, the platform that you provide for people to share their message. and just the really authentic and open and expectation-free way in which you engage in a dance and a conversation. I just really get to acknowledge that. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Marie Godwin, who looks after, is right hand woman of Charles Eisenstein, sent a lovely message. She said, "Wow, Levi and Simon together! Wow!" So I feel there's no coincidence we get drawn to the the mirrors we need at any one time. So yeah, I just want to acknowledge you in that, and also just acknowledge that to just reading that piece as we began this talk with, and then for us to come together and create this conversation just feels like it done us, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's what we're talking about, right? Life lives us. Life lives us, and it's the most beautiful way to live. And I'm so excited about where all of this is going, even though we don't know, nobody knows where it's all going, but the vision and the direction and the possibilities that are starting to wake up. I mean, imagine this. Imagine that there are these rehabilitation centers that start to spring up all over the world for people who are addicted to empire culture.
Yes. That's what I'm talking about.
That's a big part of my vision, Yeah. And imagine that we start to gather these wisdom keepers, these indigenous wisdom keepers that have held on to this wisdom for us, so that we can actually start to sit at their feet at these centers or wherever it may be, and start to recover those things. And imagine that we, and I think this is an important distinction to make in this vision, by the way, is that, because Aisha makes a good point. He makes a good point about colonizing the last bit of terrain of the indigenous people that we haven't colonized, and that's the spirituality of it, and the actual culture. We want to colonize their culture now, and that's definitely something that, for me, I think it's a fine line to walk, and it's a balance that I think should be respected. Because when we say, yes, I'm going to lay claim to my indigenous self, I am going to uncover my native self. That's why I call it the native self nation, because that I know that that's the truth of who I am. But I'm not here to steal somebody else's culture. I don't want somebody else's culture. I'm humbly asking for help in waking up my culture, my lost and forgotten culture. What's my traditions, not theirs. And I don't think that there's any offense. In fact, in the conversations that I've been having with the indigenous people that I've been connecting with last night and today up at this World Conference, Parliament of Religions, is that they're absolutely in agreement with the idea that that's what they're here for. They want to help us remember who we are.
Right.
That's what they want.
And also, it's just about words, right? So, some are calling it sovereign being, some are calling it, native self. I mean, again, this is what I was saying to your friend, is that, we also got to not get caught up on the words, but just come back to what the purity of the intention is. Mm-hmm. And what I think it is that people, are calling, and like you said, the indigenous tribes are even saying that, is that, it's come home and reconnect to who you really are, reconnect to nature, let nature teach you, look at what's happened, look at what nature's really showing us. Yeah. And this is a message that's been coming for, and also it's kind of crazy. It's not like a new message. It's been coming for thousands of years as well, right? It just feels that if anything, we're starting as a collective to be more open to it. That's what it feels like. I mean, your idea of what if, I'm the same with education and children. It's like the other day I was having this powerful conversation. Me and you could go for days, so don't worry, guys. If you're watching, we're gonna hold fire. We're gonna close this one in a second. But I was just saying that your vision there about these centers of evolution, I call them, or centers where imagine if all the schools. We eradicated bullying, full stop, because bullying comes from the pain body aspect, the separate self, right? The fear that I'm not worthy enough, or I'm imperfect and I need to bully somebody to prove my identity and get recognition. Imagine schools where there's no bullying, where children from a young age get to express themselves around circumcision, sexuality, what it means to really consciously connect, what our bodies are made of, who we are as intricate divine expressions of life. I mean, you know, you can't even fathom a world, you know, that functions when you start from a foundation of what we've been speaking about today on this call. You know, you know, the world as we know it, it's just, you talk about we're in between stories, but this more beautiful world is so mind-blowing. You know, any opportunity to contribute to that in our lifetime. Wow, what a gift.
Absolutely. And if we're just willing to let go of the fear-based thinking around it, what we would start to understand is that this is exactly what tribal cultures have understood for thousands of years. Exactly the things that you're talking about. The kind of schooling and education that tribal children, that indigenous children get, is exactly what you're talking about. The kind of upbringing that they get, and the traumas that we perpetuate in our empire culture. Just, you know, like you said, we could go on for days and days. So, but I love and appreciate the parallels and the similarities that we have in vision and purpose and direction, and I love the way that your particular expression of it happens in the world. Really,
Awesome.
really epic.
I feel like I've been on a hero's journey. My beautiful partner in crime has been listening. I always like to hear her insights after. And yeah, to everybody watching, thank you so much. There's so much information out there in the world now. There's so much content. There's so many people creating conversations, interviews. You know, we got inundated with the information. So if you've listened this far, we're nearly on 2 hours, and you've come to Simon on the Sofa and you've checked in with me and Levi today, then I just want to honor your time, because, you know, regardless of whether time's real or not, these moments that we give and listen to somebody, you know, we show up together here in circle and we listen and give our time. That is massive. And I want to honor your time, honor your ears, honor your eyes, and honor your presence in this call, not just to the live viewers, but to those that come back and watch it again. And this is just the first of many conversations I think me and Levi are going to have. And I'm really thankful that I could be a little platform to spread his message a little bit further, our collective message, the universal message of responsibility to wake up and express who we really are. And, you know, to slay the pain bodies, to get out there and paint the most beautiful world that we can even conjure up, way beyond any of our limited thinking. Let's dream big. Let's play with this beautiful life mystery and let's enjoy it. Let's love each other. Let's open our hearts. Man, I'm pumped up. I'm just fired up. It's like, I want to just say to all of my patrons, the ones that have jumped on board so far, thank you so much. You know who you are. And yeah, Levi, if you have any last words, feel free to throw it out there. Other than that, I'm going to say, thank you, goodbye, check out all the other talks, man. Just, you know, have these conversations as well, you know, with people around you, and strike them up in your community, and just, you know, get the conversations going. Take care, lots of love. Levi, over to you.
Yeah, the only thing I want to say is I just want to echo a little bit of what you said, which is that I want to acknowledge and appreciate the awareness that people, you know, I think that our awareness is the most valuable thing that we have, our consciousness. And the fact that you've devoted some of your awareness to this conversation today is something that I acknowledge, I appreciate, and I hope that it has in some way inspired or got the gears turning for you. And thank you very much, and thank you, Simon.
Here we go. Wow. Boom. There it is. Okay. Take care.